On, that's why. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are we? It's Monday afternoon, so we're here for our regular Monday check-in. How are we all doing out there in the sunshine? How are we all doing out there in the sunshine? How are we all doing out there in the sunshine? There's a lot of feedback.
I don't know if anyone does have the YouTube page open. It'd be a good time to mute yourself in YouTube.
Yeah, there we go. Right. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's, as I say, we're here regularly on a Monday just to check in with you guys and find out how you're doing home studying, not revising. We shouldn't really use that word right now, should we? But maybe some of you still got mocks. I don't know. But we're here for a very special event today because we have not got one, not two, but three medicine students who are here to talk about their experience of the medicine course, how they got there, and basically just to answer your questions. Now, we've been fielding questions on social media for, well, all week, really, and we've got a good number of questions to get through. But what we're going to do is we're going to have some introductions first, and I think what I will do to start with is make sure we can see everybody. Hello. There we go. We've got everybody on screen now. You are live on YouTube. Please do not swear or pick your nose.
Damn it.
So we have got a Rich Thompson as usual, but we've got Lauren, Lucy, and Kate. So do you guys just want to introduce yourselves one at a time? Just like a brief bit of background about yourselves. Lucy, should we start with you?
Yeah, hi, I'm Lucy, second year medical student, University of Liverpool. My A-levels I did were chemistry, biology, maths. Yeah, that's about it.
All right, that sounds good to me. Hi, Kate.
No biology. I'm going down in my books already, Lucy.
I did biology. Did I not say biology?
Oh, sorry. I thought you said chemistry, maths.
Chemistry, biology,
Obviously,
maths.
I wasn't listening. I get 0 out of 10 paying attention straight up there. Okay. Over to you then, Kate.
Hiya, my name's Kate. I'm a second year as well, and I'm lucky enough to live with Lauren and Lucy at the moment. I did chemistry, biology, and maths at A level, but I also did an AS level in geography, and I also did global perspectives, which was like a Cambridge PU alongside the A levels. Yeah.
Nice. Lauren?
Yeah, hi, my name's Lauren. I'm also a second year medical student at the University of Liverpool. The A-levels I studied were biology, chemistry, and Spanish, and I did A-level AS in maths.
Oh, nice.
Lots of recurring themes there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through, obviously, we've got some questions fielded by students on social media. If you're in the chat, then you can ask questions as well. What we're going to try and do is try and keep this nice, neat and tidy rather than talk about anything and everything. So we're going to talk about A-levels first, and then we're going to talk about UCAS and personal statements and interviews and all that thing. We're going to talk about everything. But we're just going to try and keep it in a logical order. So if you've got a question, guys, and it's maybe about the course or interviews, then hold it. We will have a little section chatting about interviews and stuff like that as well. Okay. So we'll start with A-levels. I mean, obviously you girls have just said what A-levels you did. I think commonality between you all, probably the biology and the chemistry, or biology, chemistry and maths, I suppose, when you look at them. And maths. All right, Ronnie's listening. I mustn't forget maths. So one of the questions that was asked on social media is, I mean, we don't need to go into a massive amount of detail, but were there any particular methods of studying for your A-levels or any resources that you found particularly useful while you were doing your A-levels?
I'd say, like, firstly, I tried to consolidate my knowledge to begin revision, go over the topics, just make sure it's really secure. But then after that, I kind of used a few different resources. I found it quite useful to change the way I studied. So some days I'd watch videos, some days I'd listen to tutorials or just make notes from a textbook. But I'd say it was really useful someone else explaining it, say on YouTube, on tailored tutors or something like that, just going through it, and also other people going through past papers. I found really useful to see how they tackled different questions and use the mark schemes as well, because I found quite often with like chemistry and biology especially, the similar questions came up year after year, and like I used the mark schemes to kind of like revise from that, as there were like different marking points for each question. And so I found like working on the exam technique like really helped prepare myself for the exam, because it made it like really realistic, and I kind of knew what the question was getting at and like how to answer it in the format they were looking for.
It's massive, that, isn't it? It's so because content is one thing, but then exam technique is another thing that a lot of students probably put to one side almost and leave it to last minute. But yeah, some really good advice there, Kate.
Yeah, do you know when you started? Do you remember when you started using past papers? I'll go to Lauren first. Like was that right at the end of the year, or did you incorporate it from early on?
It was quite different dependent on the subject, actually. The chemistry and biology, I was using it throughout as I was going through each topic, keeping it relevant to making sure I was learning the information I needed to know. Spanish was a bit different as it's less sciencey, but I really found it useful for biology and chemistry especially.
Nice. What about you, Lucy?
Yeah, just like echoing what the others have said, like past papers I lived by throughout my whole A-levels. I just remember going through them over and over again. I mean, I didn't use too many online resources. I'd say the only thing I really used was YouTube, maybe, just for like the big concepts for like chemistry and biology. There's some really good videos. You're just searching what specifically you're looking for. Apart from that, I liked mind maps. That was like my thing that I always did. So, but I think it's just finding what works for you, really, because obviously everyone's different. So
that's it, yeah. And I think it's what Kate was saying as well, is mixing it up. You obviously finding something that works for you is really important, but equally that can get monotonous even if you really enjoy it or it really works for you. So yeah, mixing it up's a good shout too.
There was a question there about, is A-level biology required for medicine at university?
Definitely chemistry is required. Most universities like you to have two others, like the other two A-levels to be like maths, biology. There's a list of certain like requirements for each university, but I think like biology is highly favourable. I think it just depends on the university. So I'd say like recommend looking at the university's page and what like their specific requirements are.
I know for like some universities it's either chemistry or biology, but then you have to have another science on top of that. So whether that be physics, maths, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it varies massively, doesn't it, from uni to uni? But I do think one general one is that they do really like you having chemistry at probably some places more than biology, because I think it's probably easier to get students in terms of like, I don't know, the content and the principles in biology. It's probably easier for them to bring everybody up to a certain level in the first year, isn't it? You probably do loads of physiology, is it, in the first year?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought as much. So I think that answers T-Boy's question in there about what you do in your first year. So obviously we know that you guys are all going to University of Liverpool. What was it that attracted you to Liverpool? Was it kind of like you had it in your mind that that's definitely where you wanted to go, or was it milling around in a few that you weren't sure about to start with and then you made your mind up?
We start with Lauren and then go on my screen anti-clockwise. Lauren.
Yeah, sure. So when I was choosing my universities, I chose them based off how likely I was to get in, which is quite different to how most people choose universities for other courses. So Liverpool was the only university I applied to that I'd actually visited, which is quite a wild concept for some people. But I'd done my research into all the universities, and when I did visit Liverpool, I really liked it. I like the feel of the campus, and it's just a nice city. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, Liverpool's a great city. I mean, it's up the road from me. It's like 40 minutes on the train or something like that. But yeah, I'd love Liverpool. It's great. What about you, Lucy?
Yeah, so I went to like quite a few open days. I was reluctant to apply anywhere that I hadn't gone and seen, really, unlike Lauren. But yeah, so as soon as I went to Liverpool, I mean, the city really does sell it for me, really, because obviously there's variation within the courses between different universities, but I think the city is what really did it for me and made me want to apply there. Yeah.
Nice. Kate?
Yeah, I was quite similar to Lauren. I approached it on where I was most likely to get an offer from. I visited Liverpool several times because I'm quite local, and I just really love the university and the course especially. I kind of was drawn to because we've got so many different specialist hospitals in the area. We've got the Walton Centre, the Women's Hospital, Liverpool Heart and Chest, Olga Hay. There's so many, and I just thought the opportunities to have placements in all of these specialist hospitals was, it's an amazing opportunity, and that kind of drew me to that.
Nice. You got to take a rounded view, haven't you? Because I think, I remember looking when I was choosing my university years ago, it's kind of right, what are the best unis for this particular course? But then it's you got to take into account the city and your surroundings, and, you've got to be there for a very long time, so, there's no point. It's it's a great course, but I actually hate living there. That'd just be the longest 3, 4, 5 years of your life, wouldn't it? So, yeah, good advice. I'll
follow up with a quick question about students right now. Probably won't be, right now they can't go and visit the city. They can't necessarily go do open days and things like that. I just kind of fell in love with the buildings and the position of the university within the town. There's so many variables that you can't really get from a prospectus or online. Any tips or advice on choosing, for those of you that didn't, choosing university without visiting it? I'm just going to take my camera off because it looks way better with 4, not 5. So I'm still here, but I'll just be unseeable.
I think quite a lot of universities, due to the current situation, are doing virtual open days online, and you can see especially the accommodations. I think there's virtual tours that you can do. I know it's not the same, but I think there's quite a lot in place to allow students to get the feel of the different universities at the moment. Yeah.
No, it must be really, really hard. And I think, I know, go with what you're familiar with as well. I mean, I think I went to University of Bath, and not being far from Chester myself, when I first went to Bath, and kind of felt familiar because it's a Roman city like Chester, and so I kind of fell in love with that place in that respect. But yeah, I think, were there, as a question just in the chat actually linked to this, were there any other universities that you were kind of juggling around with Liverpool? Was there what was your second choice?
Yeah, so I had applied to Liverpool, Manchester, Nottingham and Leicester, because they recommend you apply to 4 and then your 5th one don't apply for medicine. That's what they recommend. So I'd applied, similar to the others, you've got to think strategically about where you're most likely to get in. I think Liverpool and Manchester were probably my top 2 because of the city. And then Nottingham, I didn't actually get an interview or an offer from, and then I had Leicester as well, which was sort of more of my backup plan because they have less applicants per place, so I thought I was more likely to get in. So I think doing your research into things like that is really important. It's sort of a balancing act between where you think you'd enjoy the most and where you're more likely to get in. So
yeah, interesting you say that there was a lower number of applicants per place. So where did you guys find that sort of information when you were doing your research?
I found the Medic portal really useful because there's a part of it and you can compare 4 different medical schools, and then it shows in a table the different statistics, how they choose their applicants based on GCSEs, the UCAT, A levels, and it just shows you historic data as well, so you can get an idea of their application to offer video and stuff like that. Yeah, that was particularly useful for me.
Cool. Is that the same for you, Lauren and Lucy?
Yeah, I also used the Medic portal, found it really helpful, and also just going through all the details, and if there's one university you're particularly interested in, just make sure you're properly reading through their online requirements. on their websites, and just making sure it does suit what your grades and what you've got to give.
Cool. Yeah. So do your research basically, and Medic Portal seems to be the place to do that. That's awesome. Right. I think we're going through some sections here, and it's probably quite heavy, this one, but UCAS and personal statements. Obviously, loads of students out there who are thinking of applying for medicine. They just want to know how to be successful. Now, obviously, it was a couple of years ago for you guys, but you were successful. So we got some questions that were posted on social media. So I think for personal statements, I think one from each of you, things that you can put in your personal statement that help you stand out. So what do you think that you guys did that really kind of stood out for you? And we'll start with Kate. What do you reckon, Kate?
I'd particularly say as a top tip, to like as your opening sentence, to like demonstrate your motivation for getting into medicine, like to start off with, because it like makes you stand out and it shows your like motivation and ambition and like an insight that you realise you'd suit medicine, and also kind of link it into your personal, like your experience of like when you're on like work experience or volunteering or just in any care setting. Just link that in straight away, so they instantly see you're motivated, you're committed, and this is what you really want.
Oh, cool. So get that in right at the start, you think?
Yeah, that'd be my main bit of advice.
Nice. Top tip there from Kate. What about you, Lucy?
I'd say personal statement is a lot. It's not really about your academic success. It's about what else you can show them. Like, what other things have you done? Your extracurricular activities, the work experience. If you've got any sort of like hobbies, it's just about showing that you're a well-rounded individual. So talking about what you do in your spare time, how you relax. They just want to know that it's not just medicine is my life, that's it. They want to know that you have other interests as well.
That's it. And I think that goes for every personal statement out there as well. You know, they don't want to know that, there's not a place to be showing off your academic credentials. Oh, I read this book and this paper and now I know about this. And yeah, so it's about showing yourself as the student as a whole. I think that's great advice. What about you, Lauren?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Lucy that I think that's what really makes you stand out and shows you as an individual. I would also say, if you've got examples of something really interesting you saw, or something that really inspired you, to include that, something that you might have seen on work experience or volunteering, just to make it really relevant to your application and show how that would apply to being a doctor.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely. I think it is making it relevant, isn't it? And I think a lot of people talk about their extracurricular activities or their part-time work. And I think anything that's, from my limited experience with medicine applications, where you're dealing with people as well, I think is probably a good thing to show that, okay, I might have the wherewithal to actually deal with the course and get on the course and be successful, but actually it's all about people, isn't it? Right?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, there was a question there from Benny who said, what do you think was the strongest thing in your application? And he said, e.g., which of the factors I think are most important? Is it the UCAT? Is it the personal statement? Was it your interview? Like, where do they rank in terms of the hierarchy of priority?
I think that's a really difficult question to answer, because I think they also come into factor at different stages of the application. When you're first sending in your UCAS, your predicted grades and your UCAT score are some of the most important things. But then once you get to interview, if you don't interview well, you're not going to get any further. So you've got to have the whole skill set, really.
Yeah, and like I would say about like a personal statement, from what I've seen, it's not weighted very heavily at many universities. It's sort of used as a differentiating factor. If you're sort of borderline, whether you get an interview or not, then they might look at your personal statement. But I don't know of many universities that put very much weighting on it.
Yeah, I'd say following on from what Lucy said, it just really depends on the university. Like some universities weight GCSEs more heavily, or some weight the UCAT like the most heavily. So I think it really just depends on where you apply. So I'd look into the details of the different universities and like see how much weight they give to each like section.
Yeah, I've been asked by students. Yeah, but in terms of personal statement, the final thing I've had students in the past ask me for like examples of good ones from the past and like templates and type stuff, but really it's personal is the most important word there. You want to sing about the things that what makes you different to everybody else, and you might think, oh, it's not very much, but if you really compare yourself to someone who's totally opposite to you, who's like totally, if you're organized, someone who's not organized, like what is it that you do well, and get your personality in there. And it then doesn't, I think if you communicate yourself well, that's the ideal about the personal statement.
Yeah, no, totally agreed. Yeah, that's it. Because they want to know, what type of student they're kind of letting themselves in for. And like Lucy said, they may look at that to maybe decide whether you get an interview or not. It's like, oh, I want to hear more from this person, So don't feel like you have to kind of put everything in there. I remember one trick I was taught when I was doing mine way back when, was that almost tell half a story. So it's kind of like give them something that you kind of want them to ask you more about an interview almost, So I don't know whether that's still relevant or not, or whether indeed that was a good idea, but it worked for me. So
yeah, and don't write what you think they want to hear. Describe yourself and be yourself in it.
Yeah. You'll go through a number of, how many times do you reckon you rewrote your personal statements, girls?
20. Quite a lot. Yeah, I'd say start early with it, and then you can refine it on like tips you hear and other things. Yeah,
I just liked giving mine out to everyone I knew. I was like, teachers, yes, parents, yes, you read it.
There was a question from Suzanne. Do you know any websites to see which parts of applications different universities favour? A very tricky one there.
Again, the Medic portal is really good resource. Tells you what UCAT score is needed, what predicted grades and things like that, what GCSEs.
Yeah, also like just the university, like the medicine faculty page, some like they'll usually say, and also look at historic data, like what was the cut-off the year before. I know it probably won't be the same, but it does give you a general like idea of the cutoff, and you can kind of look at that and compare it to your application.
Yeah, stats are really important, aren't they? If you can look up that's amazing. I had no idea you could actually do that, so I've learned something there. Okay, cool. So unless we got any other personal statement questions, I think they're really good advice, really good tips and advice there. Thank you very much. So I think should we talk about a UCAT? You want to talk about a UCAT next, and then we'll talk about interviews? Okay, so there is one question that has been repeated on social media a few times, probably here as well. How did you prepare for your UCAT? And I think that's a very big question, isn't it? But I don't know, Lucy, you want to go first on this one?
Yeah. So like I know for me, it's a very daunting thing. You hear loads of things about the UCAT and thinking, oh God, it sounds awful. For me, there was one book I did get, which was ISC Medical, 1,250 UCAT questions.
Wow.
And it was just this massive book full of example questions. And I just found that really helpful. You just got to get used to the style of questions. And also on the UCAT website, I think they do have sample questions on there as well to help you prepare. So I think it's just a case of getting used to the questions.
Good. So like we were talking about doing past papers and exam technique before, it's just, there's no better kind of practice for it than just giving them a go, right?
Definitely.
Cool. What about you, Lauren?
I personally mostly use the UCAT website itself because the exam is on a computer. So I felt doing it the same format was a bit more realistic and found that useful. Also, the time pressures are really the main thing that gets you stressed, and the questions, if you had all the time in the world, would be actually okay, but it's having restricted time to do it in that makes it really hard. So I'd definitely say practice with the actual time conditions.
Nice. Another top tip. Kate, no pressure. They're two for two now.
I definitely say about the timing. that can be like quite daunting, knowing you've got so little time to do quite a lot of questions. So I'd say definitely give yourself quite a few weeks in advance to practice the timing before you do it. I'd also say there's like 4 different sections and they require different skills. For me, I was quite good at the quantitative section. I don't know why, maybe because of like A-level maths. So I didn't feel like I needed to spend that much time on that section, but the verbal reasoning section I did really struggle with. So I spent more time on that and looked through it and kind of really practiced the questions and kind of learned how to approach the question. So I find that particularly helpful.
Oh, cool. So yeah, so like having a plan. So it's like any exam, I suppose, isn't it? You're going to have stronger areas and weaker areas. And if you can kind of nail those down and spend more time practicing the areas you're weaker at, then obviously, you increase your chances, don't you? So that's great. So, I mean, in terms of the UCAT then, so there's a window, isn't there, about when you can do it? So when did you guys, I mean, if you had a recommendation, what would it be? To do it early, to do it when you go back to college?
I'd say it depends if you're planning on doing the BMAT as well as the UCAT. I knew I was just going to take the UCAT, and so I did it just before I went into year 13. So I used the summer to revise and prepare for it, and then went back into A-levels after it. But if you're doing the BMAT as well, I'd say like spread them out so you've got enough time to prepare for each test, because they use different skill sets. Yeah. Okay.
What about you, Lauren?
I did it again towards the end of August before I went back to college. But I think it also has to be around plan. If you've got plans in summer, work it around that. I decided not to do it in September when I would actually be at college, because I thought with the whole A-levels going on as well, trying to keep on top of that work would be a bit much, as well as doing the UCAT. So it's just, I think, what suits you, what you feel like when you feel like you have the most time to prepare.
Yeah. What about you, Lucy? Anything to add?
Yeah, same as the others. I did mine in the August. I just think it's a better idea when you can just solely focus on that, because I did practice questions for maybe, so the window opens in July and it goes all the way through till October. So for all of July and quite a bit of August, I was just practice, and then had it over and done with, ready for year 13. I just felt better getting it out of the way before I went back.
Yeah, don't blame me. I do exactly the same thing. Right? Why juggle it, right? And I think there's a follow-up question here from Holly. Like, how long did you give yourself to prepare for the UCAT? So, well, Lucy, you just said probably a couple of months you were doing like practice papers for.
Yeah, not like all day every day. I think it's sort of just like dripping it in, just keep doing a little bit, keep it ticking over, sort of thing. Yeah.
That's it. Another follow-up question just come in actually. Heba, can you resit the UCAT, or I think is it a one-time thing?
It's a one-time per year thing. Yeah. So if it doesn't go well the first time round, you'd have to have another wait until the following year to have another go.
Right. Okay. So definitely worth prepping, for the first time round then. Yeah. The last thing you want to do is have to wait another year. And I know it's quite difficult right now because Holly was saying that they haven't said when the UCAT will take place this year because of COVID. But with it being online, I don't imagine there will be any disruption to that, to be honest, because, UCAT still has to roll out, in your applications and stuff. So I think if they messed with that timeline of the UCAT, that would throw everything else out of kilter. So I'm pretty sure, Holly, that should go ahead as planned, I should imagine. Right, okay, onwards and upwards. Now, interview time, ladies. Now, you probably don't really want to think about this too much because stressful times. Interviews are never nice, but obviously we've had quite a few questions about interviews. And I think, your experience, obviously you interviewed at Liverpool. So that was an MMI, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, cool. So does one of you kind of want to relive that fateful day where you had to go around all those tables and let us know how that went and what the kind of layout was? No, any volunteers?
I don't mind. basically, when you're invited to interview by the university, some of them like will give you an idea of how it's going to work out on the day, maybe like tell you the number of stations, and maybe tell you the stuff to bring, like your passport, and maybe a few extra forms that they want as well. So you'll get there, and there'll be a bit of a briefing beforehand, and then you'll just go onto the circuit. And it's just it varies, like the number of stations between the different unis, but I'd say probably like 6 to 12 stations usually. And most of them, there'll be a prep sheet outside the station, and you'll have time to prepare before you go into it. Yeah, I'm not really sure if there's anything else to add about like how it works, but yeah, that's
okay. Well, I got an image. That's a good description. Were there any ones specifically of those kind of different stations? Were there any ones that you found particularly tricky? You remember? Any ones that spring to mind?
I think there were so I had interviews at multiple universities, and I definitely remember at least 2 of them there being role play stations, which obviously you can't prepare for a role play. It's improvisation, so it can sort of throw you off. You've just sort of got to do your best at that time. But yeah, I don't think you need to stress about it too much, because obviously everyone's in the same boat with it. But yeah, no, it is stressful. I mean, I remember being super stressed for my interview. But one question linked to that, I mean, was there any preparation actually you guys did specifically, or anything that you recommend in preparation for interviews?
Yes, one thing I definitely looked at was current medical affairs, like looking at the news. They do bring that up occasionally.
I wonder what's going to come up this year.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. Also, knowing a bit about medical ethics, sometimes you do get a few questions about that. So just going on the GMC, General Medical Council website, you can get an idea of what they might ask.
Okay, good. Anything from Kate or Lucy in that respect?
Yeah, I would say that you can sometimes get a station that's sort of like, why have you chosen this university specifically? So I'd always have an answer to that question about that university.
Yeah.
They do sort of like to hear compliments about themselves and why they're so good. So yeah.
I used on the Medic portal, they've got like a question bank of the different topic areas of questions and kind of tips, what to say and what not to say, which I found quite useful. I'd also say, yeah, I agree with Lauren about reading the GMC guidelines, and also read over your personal statement again, because they've got that, so they could bring that up.
Yeah, it's like, did I write about that? Did I say I read that book? Did I? Actually, a good question from Suzanne here. Did you get any science-based questions in the interview? So were they maybe looking to find out how well you knew your kind of content in terms of A-level chemistry or biology or maths or anything like that? Or
well, I got a few mental maths questions, but I didn't get any based on biology or chemistry. I think that's quite common to have a little maths test as part of the interview.
Yeah, same with me. I just had like a calculations sort of sheet in a station, but nothing really on biology or chemistry.
Oh, right. So, yeah, so lesson is, well, obviously this is Liverpool University, but so it doesn't sound like, I mean, the thing is, I think your A-level results kind of, and your predicted grades are kind of testament to how well you know the content, aren't they? So, and they do spend a lot of the time in their first year kind of making sure everyone's up to scratch in terms of their content. They just want to know that, you know, you're motivated and you're a good fit for the course, I suppose, don't they? That's all they want to do. I think it was Yaz. Yaz in the chat has just said, I had my Liverpool Med interview this year and it was actually kind of fun and the staff were really friendly. There you go. So good advert for Liverpool Uni there.
It kind of ties into Benny's question there. Any advice for remaining calm or not getting too anxious or stressed? I'd put that to the girls, but I'd say, yeah, try trying to just engage with it, actively listen to make sure that you are responding to the question they've actually asked you, and just give it your best shot. After, when you get there, all you can do in any interview is just throw yourself into it and not worry too much about the outcome whilst you're doing it, would be my advice. But I'll hand over to, let's go Lucy first on that one.
Yeah, I would say that even if, so for example, that obviously there's multiple stations, and if one station doesn't go the way that you'd hoped, you don't feel like it's gone so well, just try and put it to the back of your mind, because that doesn't necessarily mean that the next station's not going to go well. And you've got to remember they're each assessing you individually. So if you don't score so well on one station, you can still make it up elsewhere. So yeah.
Good advice. Good advice. So have you guys got any, I mean, obviously, like, so many things to think about with your applications and interviews and UCAT and everything like that. I mean, obviously anxiety builds, stress builds. So have you got any, was there any tips or anything that you guys had that worked while you were going through all that? Because obviously the pressure builds, and I think right now people are feeling it more than ever. So have you got any tips for kind of keeping the stress at bay and the anxiety at bay?
I would just say keep doing what you enjoy. If you've got hobbies, try and keep them up if you can. Don't give everything up because you're studying. It is a balance. So I play a lot of hockey and I really enjoy it, and having that outlet really helped me work when I need to work, but also relax a bit more as well.
Yeah, we all need a de-stressor, right? We all need to do something that's not work related, where we can just clear our minds and just think about nothing else. I think Rich was saying the other week that he used to juggle. So I literally, was it you, Rich, that said that?
Yeah.
Juggle, just to kind of, because you cannot think about anything else while you're juggling.
Yeah, and sport in general is a good way to blow off steam for me, certainly. But find your thing. If that's playing music, if that's, you know, doing whatever that thing is, then find that and do it, and don't give it up. I think that's a great idea. When we were interviewing Miggy a few weeks ago, who's basically just finished her university doing medicine and is finished her foundation years and is just doing sort of general practice training, she was saying, don't jump too much into the academics right now. You're going to be very busy over the next 5 to 10 years if you're being a junior doctor. So take advantage of some of the time that you have between your A-levels to enjoy it and to do your hobbies, and not to give up on those things too much.
You got a follow-up question, Rich, or should we move on to the next section?
No,
unless you girls have got anything to add about
category.
Yeah, have you girls got anything you want to add?
One thing that Ronnie put in the chat there in terms of just keeping calm and reducing stress and anxiety, exactly the same when you start a paper. They say go at 9 o'clock in the morning, open the paper, a few deep breaths, controlling your breathing, or really have a feedback response with your overall stress levels, your cortisol levels in your blood. So deep conscious breathing, controlling your diaphragm, and I think breathing in slowly and holding your breath for a few seconds and then breathing out slowly, 3 or 4 reps of that, and you will see a noticeable decrease in your stress response. So a physiological hack for you there.
Nice. There's a question from Sarah about student finance and loans and stuff like that. I don't think we'll broach that now. What I think we'll do is we're going to do a whole bunch of YouTube lives over the summer talking about student finance and how it works, down, you know, anything and everything from accommodation to student finance to kind of, I don't know, how do you feed yourself at university? So, you know, we'll kind of cover all those other things, I think, another time. But it's a very good question, Sarah, and we will cover that, matey. Unless, I tell you what, I mean, no, we'll cover it another time, because we'll be getting away from the whole kind of medicine stuff. And I think we should really talk. We've been here 40 minutes already. I'm just a bit conscious of the time. So obviously, you know, you guys are at Liverpool Uni and you're really happy there and you're loving it. So a lot of students are asking like what the first year was like for you guys. So do one of you maybe want to give us a synopsis of like the types of modules that you're doing in year one, the types of things that you do in your first year?
Yeah, so on our course, it's an integrated course. So we've got CBL, which is case-based learning, and lectures as well. In first year, it was kind of split into different system blocks. And within like the system blocks, we have anatomy tutorials. So we've got like a human anatomy and resource centre, which we go to like every other week, which is really useful. And then at the end of each block, we'll have like a CBL session. So that kind of ties in with the block and consolidates what we've learned, and is also quite realistic for like future practice, because we'll get a case and we'll go through the scenarios and the findings of that case and link it to the physiology and anatomy. But I'd say mainly in first year it's anatomy and physiology, and then in future years, like, we've moved on to the pathology now.
Okay, good stuff. What about you, Lauren? I mean, any kind of highlights from the first year? Anything maybe to be wary of for students kind of going into the first year? Maybe they can, maybe something you thought, oh, I didn't know I'd be doing this, or maybe, you know, the stuff that maybe you found more difficult than others.
I think with the way our course is structured, so we study different blocks. For example, we did endocrine, musculoskeletal, cardiovascular at different parts throughout the year, and it's just switching between the blocks as we're studying them and bringing it all together at the end of the year for the exam. I think just having that wider picture whilst you're learning each individual area is really helpful. You can see how it all links in.
Oh yeah, so like looking at the bigger picture, right, and how it all fits together is absolutely key in any science, really, because it's all intertwined, right? All right, you, Lucy, how did your first year go? You really pleased with it? You enjoy it? What were your best bits? What were your
Best bit?
Yeah.
I think about first year is it because obviously it can be very overwhelming. There's a lot going on. You're moving away from home, living independently. So I think it's important because medical students have much more work generally than other courses. But I think it is important that despite that, you still keep time to like enjoy yourself, have time with your friends, because that really is what makes sort of first year, really, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, first year. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know what it was like when I was at university, and it may still be true now. You can confirm or deny or have no comment whatsoever. But as far as I'm aware, the medicine students tend to be the ones that work hardest, but they play the hardest as well. Would you say that's true?
Got a bit of a reputation for that.
Yeah, there it is. I thought it was true. All good, clean fun.
There's a question that kind of links into the first year a little bit, probably especially there in terms of A levels. People have said that A levels are more difficult than first year university or university. I mean, obviously, depends how you define more difficult. What are your reflections on the sort of difficulty, stress, workload of A levels versus maybe first year or med school up to date so far?
I wouldn't necessarily say that A levels are more difficult or university is more difficult. I would just say university, there's a much higher volume of work. There's a lot more content to cover. So it just takes a lot more time, not necessarily that it's more difficult.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point, and it's how you manage your time. And I think one thing that's undeniable for any course at university is that there's going to be a lot more self-directed study time, and that was one of the questions that we had on social media. Actually, was that, you know, in terms of, you know, lectures to self-directed study, in terms of percentage, like how would that kind of balance out? I mean, in terms of like, I'll tell you what, let's make it easier. Like number of hours per week outside of lecture time, how much time would you say you spend in hours per week self-directed study? You're thinking now, you're either adding it all up because there's so much of it, or you actually think, here. What do you reckon, Kate? I mean, how much time would you say, you know, bearing in mind that your tutors might be watching this as well?
I'd say on average, in an average week, not near exams or any assessments, probably about 20 hours extra.
Wow.
Maybe give or take. Don't hold me to that, but that's probably like what I'd say. But I think at uni, especially for medicine, what I found is it's a lot of different skills and like different things I'm revising. So we revise anatomy, physiology, the pathology as well. And also we do like clinical skills and communication. So there's quite a lot of different areas we're having to like go over and practice.
Yeah.
But not like other courses wouldn't necessarily do. So I think if we add all of that up, that's why it's quite a bit.
Yeah, I suppose like, you know, a lot of students treat it, well, it's a full-time course, isn't it? So it's like a full-time job essentially. You know, it's like, you know, you get your kind of 8 hours a day in or whatever it is, maybe more sometimes if obviously, you know, just something to like a deadline looming or something like that. But yeah, I mean, and I think that's one thing that they'd like to see from you at interview, would you say as well? The fact you got a bit of evidence of self-directed study and you know, grabbing the bull by the horns and kind of doing things off your own back. Would you say that's true?
Definitely. I think it's really good to show you're like independent. You go out and you get your work experience. You know, you do extra extra research, extra reading. I think, yeah, that does look really good.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, absolutely. So what we've got here, and so I'm just catching up on the questions. There's quite a few of them coming through.
There's a double header from Edith, and I wonder what if revision methods change between A levels and medicine at uni, and would you say making notes is still a good way to revise a medicine course at university? So are notes still good, and differences between revision or learning methods A levels and uni?
I would say one of the biggest differences in terms of revision methods is at uni, we don't have access to past papers. We do end of block tests, which we can access at later dates to revise sort of areas they might ask. But we don't have a full exam past paper, which is quite different. So you do end up relying on your notes a lot more. I'd say notes are definitely beneficial, especially when you're going through lectures. They go at a fast pace. You want to simplify it, make it easier to look over. Definitely a good idea to make notes.
I'd also say what I found particularly useful is older years, their experience of how much knowledge you need to go into. And quite a lot of the older years at Liverpool, they do like revision sessions for the younger years on particular topics, or like now we're doing like interpretations of like clinical findings, and their experience is really good and their teaching is really good as well. And I'd say also going to all the extra teaching put on by the medical school it's like really helped me so far.
That's good. So you have a lot of like group work sessions as well?
Yeah, we've got quite a lot of timetabled group sessions within our year, but also just sometimes in the evenings, older years put on other sessions for us as well as an extra like revision resource.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So, I mean, I suppose they have to tailor to like the ways in which people learn as well. I mean, do you get a lot of extra reading as well? It's like, so obviously lectures, you know, are pretty fast paced and you try and get down whatever kind of simplified notes you can as you're going through. But they give you access to like the resources and maybe some extra reading material afterwards as well?
Yeah. We have a reading list specifically for medicine, and they have each lecture numbered and then any reading resources underneath each lecture. So it's like really helpful. It'll point you to exactly where to go for like extra reading on that subject. It's actually really useful, yeah.
Nice. And I suppose, you know, the best thing to do is actually listen to that, because they wouldn't be telling you that if they didn't want you to go and look at it and readiness for the exams and stuff, right? Sorry, this is really quick fire. I feel like I'm like, you're on a game show or something at the moment, but you're doing awesome, guys. Thank you so much. The question was, are there any much essay work that you get given?
We've got a research project in each year. It's different to the essays, say you'd have done at A level. It's kind of more research and kind of analysis of data, but we haven't got like any essays like based in assessments like at the end of the year or anything. We haven't done any essays in them. It's just kind of this one research project each year that I'd say we'd use like essay skills for.
Okay, nice. Yeah, because I think, you know, it's mainly exam based, isn't it, the course, would you say? Or is it pretty much totally exam based?
Yeah, it's 100% exam. We have 2 exams at the end of first year. There are other things like we have an e-portfolio and, like Kate mentioned, the research project that you have to pass, but they're just pass-fail. It's the exam that actually counts.
All right, cool. So what's the, just while we're on the subject, I mean, what's the sort of structure they tend to give you in exams? Are they like like full written exams? Are they multiple choice sections in some of them, or do they tend to mix it up?
Yeah, they're all multiple choice. They're either extended matching questions or single best answer. So it's not as easy as it sounds when you say multiple choice. Oh, it's quite, you think, oh, it'll be easy. But single best answer, for example, there may be more than one answer that could be correct, but you've got to pick out the one that is the most correct.
Wow.
So it can be quite tricky.
Yeah, I'll bet. And then your brain starts playing tricks on you. It's like, yeah, but what about this? And then what about this? It's a nightmare, absolute nightmare. That's great. So I'm just looking at the rest of the questions here. I tell you what, we're talking about the course and stuff. Oh, Rich, sorry, go on, mate.
Well, I get the time to digest the questions in the meantime. So again, I'm sort of grouping a couple together here. Edith, way back when at the very beginning, said, what did you buy before starting a medical, your med degree? Did you get a stethoscope and stuff like that? Which kind of links into also any other books or any advice to read or buy in terms of books in preparation for your first year. I think that they would do our group together.
You go, Lucy.
I actually didn't buy anything in terms of like a stethoscope or anything like that, just because I haven't actually needed to buy one until this year of university. So I feel like it would be a bit early to buy it before first year. In terms of books, I didn't buy any before I came to university either, because I find that they have really good recommendations, like on the reading lists. And in the library, they've sort of got all the books you need. I don't know if it's maybe a bit unnecessary to buy your own copies when they're all in the library, especially just at Liverpool. This is obviously.
I'd probably say if there was anything you wanted, I agree with Lucy about the reading list. Like there's books at university which are made available, but I found Grey's Anatomy flashcards or any kind of anatomy flashcards particularly useful, because it's kind of a different way of revising, and it's like visual and you can quickly test yourself. And anatomy is quite difficult to revise on it like by itself. So that's my like top recommendation.
Yeah, I'd also agree with that, but I'd also suggest maybe a good laptop. Quite a lot of all our lectures, we get the slides beforehand, and you're able to re-watch the slides, the lectures themselves back again. And also all the library, the physical books that are in the library are also you're able to access them online. So I think having something like that at last you is really useful.
Yeah, I think, especially with tech the way it is, and I think, making notes and people love pen and paper, and there's nothing wrong with that. I know I use an iPad for making notes, and there's loads of different apps out there you can use to do that, to keep it all in one place. I mean, you just got to kind of find your own thing, right? But I think, having yourself a reliable laptop or iPad or something like that. Other tablets are available, I should probably say. But yeah, some good advice. Thank you very much.
Yaz has put that in. Would you recommend anything specifically in terms of maybe we just say, how do you take your notes? I can tell you from the sort of the general research science, if you're typing, and you can type generally faster than you can write by hand, which means you can almost write verbatim what someone's saying, which means you don't actually process the words. You're just in sort of photocopy mode with your hands and fingers. Whereas if you are forced to take notes in a way that condenses things, it's a bit of a sacrifice in terms of the total information you gain, but that mental processing you do to do that means that you remember it better. So by being slower, it actually aids recall. But I'd be interested, everyone has their own different systems that works for them. Lucy, what do you do personally? You hand wrote? Do you take your laptop, iPad?
Yeah, I started off first year trying to type, but then I found that I couldn't keep up, and I didn't actually understand what I was typing because I was just typing. I wasn't actually, like say, taking it in. So now what I do is I have my iPad with the lectures on it, and I've got like an Apple Pencil that you can actually annotate the slides with anything that you want to like circle, highlight, make notes on that. But yeah, I think pen and paper probably would be another option. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's because they are fast paced. I think it's always a bit of a shock when you first start going to lectures in university. Like, wow, this is loads different from a lesson. It is a world apart, and but you just kind of find your own way, don't you? Really. Gratis has got a very important question, guys. Are you addicted to coffee? As medicine students, are you addicted to coffee? Yes or no answer?
No.
Maybe.
Maybe. It depends on the day, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we did have a question, speaking about resources and things like that, about pre-reading. I think students always feel like there's a lot of pressure to kind of like know more stuff. So maybe they got their offer, they got the grades, have accepted. Right now, what do I do in readiness for the first year? And I think, students, not just for medicine, but all degrees, think, what can I do to kind of get ready? I mean, would you say you don't need to do anything, or was there something that you did specifically that you think helped you before you started? Lauren?
I actually had a really nice summer off. I felt like after A levels, that was what I needed in order to enter university fresh, ready to learn. But some people find they're more relaxed when they're prepared. You don't really need to know anything. Like you mentioned before, you do go over the basics, you get everyone up to the same standard in first year. But looking over some anatomy would not harm you at all, I think. If you want to learn anything, anatomy is beneficial.
Cool. Same to you, Lucy, anything?
Yeah, same really. I just let myself off. I wouldn't like the first 6 weeks, I think, of first year was all basically a foundation block, just going over quite a lot of the concepts from A level anyway, to get everyone up to speed. So I don't really think it's necessary. Yeah.
Cool. Same for you, Kate.
Yeah, I'd agree with the others, unless like they particularly said, oh, start reading this, or if there's any particular resources the uni recommends for you to look over the summer. I'd say at this time, if people want to, you could do a bit of extra research into a particular area that interests them, like a modular online course, maybe, if there's a particular specialty you like the look of and just want to know a bit more about. But that's just if that interests you. It's not necessary or anything.
Okay, cool. Right, I think we got one more question, and then obviously, I want to talk to you about Liverpool a little bit more before we finish, and we are on the hour pretty much. So thank you very much for sticking with us, guys. We're just so close to finishing. So Benion's asking, what advice would you give someone who got rejected first time round? So that's a tough one. So if you got rejected first time round, then so you're into the next academic year, I mean, any advice?
I mean, I would look at where you applied and why you got rejected, because if you weren't playing to your strengths, then that's probably why you were rejected. If you had a weak UCAT score and then you applied to universities that put heavy weighting on it, then obviously that increased the likelihood of getting rejected. So again, like we said before, research into the universities you want to apply to and look at what they are looking for.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Anything to add, Kate, Lauren? If not, that's okay.
I'd say if it was on your interview, you could always email the university and maybe ask for feedback about your interview. So, like for the next time round, like where to improve and like what to look into a bit more.
Yeah, and I'd also add, if in the circumstance that you don't get the grades, it's a bit tricky. If you've already got an offer, some unis might accept you, but if you're then rejected, it can be quite tough. So you could either resit, but you have to be really careful about which unis you apply to, because some don't accept resits at all. Or even consider possibly, if you're dead set on medicine, but your A-levels just weren't there, maybe go the postgrad route. But then again, that is very competitive and not guaranteed at all.
Yeah, so because I think a lot of people go from biomed, don't they? Biomedical science into medicine. That's kind of like a classic route as well, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, as we said, you guys are in Liverpool, loving life in Liverpool. So, I mean, obviously, it was your first choice uni. You're obviously really happy there. We covered it before about the city and stuff. But like with any uni, I suppose there's other things that are going on around you. You don't go there and just study and that's all I do. So is there anything else kind of going on in Liverpool that kind of keeps you out of trouble when you're not studying?
I think what's really good about the medical school is we've got a lot of the societies, like specialist societies, which do conferences and events and revision like evenings, and also like social activities, which like are really good. And so you can kind
let's call them social activities.
Yeah. You can like get in if you've got a particular specialty that you think you might want to pursue in the future. You can join the society and, you know, get to know a bit more about that specialty quite early on.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's lots of opportunities like going on at the moment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would also add that like the actual Liverpool Medical Society is like great, especially for like getting to know older years. Like they throw so many events throughout the year. It's just a great thing to get involved with. I know I was on the committee for that this year just gone, and it was so much fun. I think it's got the medical school at Liverpool's got quite a reputation, not always the best one, but it is a lot of fun.
Nice, that's what we want. It's a balance,
Yeah.
right? So are you, Lauren? You in any other societies or anything in uni?
Yes, I am. Not necessarily with the medical school though. I'm also in like more general university societies. So I play hockey for the university, which is a lot of fun. And it's nice to also meet friends outside of your course, just escape from medicine for a little bit. And I'm also in the OTC, the Officer Training Corps, which is part of the Army Reserves. And that's been great, John. Lots of different exciting trips with them as well.
Excellent. Oh, there's so much to kind of get involved with. Almost too much to get involved with at university. It's like, you know, so you learn about these societies. I learned about some when as I was graduating, I was chatting to people. Oh, I was in this society. I didn't even know that existed. It's like, you got to go looking for these opportunities, I suppose, like anything, isn't it, really?
Definitely.
Right. So I think we should let you guys go because we've been picking your brains for just over an hour now. So I cannot thank you enough. I mean, do you have any last kind of golden words of advice for any budding medical applicants out there? We'll call it a day after that.
I'd just say like best of luck with everything and be strategic about where you're like planning to apply to, because you just don't want to be disappointed. But yeah, just best of luck and hope it all goes well. Oh,
thanks, Kate.
Yeah, I would just like echo that, sort of do your research, be prepared, but at the end of the day, you've just got to be yourself, especially when it comes to that interview and things like that. So yeah, but good luck to everyone.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, it's more of the same. Be yourself, try your best, and have fun whilst doing it as well. I think keep balance. There's definitely need to keep balance in your life.
Excellent advice. And like we were saying before, it's about combating that stress and the anxiety. You need like something else to focus on, which is so, so important. It's really good that we hear that from you guys, because I think students look at people who are in medical school or doctors and think, oh, they must have just sold their souls to it, sold their life to it. And it is a lot of work, but it's really refreshing to hear you guys say that it's all about balance. And it is so, so true. And I think it's worth remembering for all the students out there.
Yeah, and lots of thanks coming in on the chat saying you've been really helpful. So that has been awesome. I'm sure we'll do lots of follow-ups as things go on, and we won't hold you to it now, but I'm sure if you'd love to come back at some point next year, then we can see how you're getting on with your medical careers. It would be great.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, ladies. So next week, you are just stuck with me, Rich and Ronnie. Back to normal next Monday, but on the horizon, I am speaking to a first year chemistry student from Cardiff University as well. So anybody, if you know anybody who's doing chemistry, yeah, whoop, whoop, Cardiff and chemistry, good combo. So yeah, we'll be chatting to a chemistry student and seeing what their experience was and is. And yeah, so we've got a whole list of different kind of degrees and courses and things like that we want to talk to students about, and keep your suggestions coming in, guys.
Yeah,
And,
if you have ideas, you want people that you'd really love to get an aerospace engineer or someone really niche, or if you've got a, you know, if your brother is doing that and would love to join us, then get in touch and we'll line it up.
Excellent. Right, we'll see you next week, students. And again, Lucy, Kate, Lauren, thank you very, very much. It was absolutely stunning. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Soon.